All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if you haven't done so yet, please do share in the chat where you're joining us from. So welcome to our applicant webinar for the Pratt Whitney E-STEM Awards for the 2023 cycle. Thank you so much for your interest in this program, and we're really excited to read all of your submissions as they come in. For this webinar, our goal is to dive in a little bit about this opportunity and share especially the differences between the innovation grants and the excellence prize. But we're also going to share some advice and some tips about how to write a strong submission. And probably most importantly, we're going to have a lot of time for questions. So feel free to share your questions in the chat throughout, and we will pause throughout for questions. So I first want to thank our whole team here at NAAE that has been working on this awards program and this webinar. I'm joined by Judy, Anne, myself, and Madeline. And we also have Andy here on our team who's helping in the chat as well. Thank you to the whole team, as well as to Margot Bailey at Pratt Whitney, who we'll hear from in a few minutes for all of your work on this program. With that, I'm going to turn it to Judy to say a few welcome words.
Thanks, Nina, and hello, everybody. I'm Judy Browse. I'm the Executive Director of NAAE. Really excited that you joined us today and that you're interested in completing an application for this amazing opportunity. I want to thank Nina for her leadership and the whole NAAE team. And we love the partnership with Pratt & Whitney, and especially the chance to work with Margot, who you'll meet in a minute. I love the partnership between corporations and nonprofits working together to advance environmental education and STEM. And I hope you all apply for this wonderful opportunity and let us know what you're doing to advance this important work. And Nina, I just want to say one word. I woke up today, I'm in Washington, D.C. area, and the air quality is impacted by the forest fires in Canada. And they're recommending that you don't go outside without a mask. It's like smoking 7 cigarettes a day if you spend the day outside. So we're all seeing the impact of climate change and all the interconnected environmental and social issues around the world. And education is a key factor in addressing these issues. So thanks for being here, and we look forward to working with you and seeing your applications. Nina, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Judy. Yeah, and I hope all of you up in DC and up the East Coast are staying safe. The air quality is quite bad today in the last few days, so stay safe, everyone. All right. So as I said, our goal here today is to walk you through this opportunity and overall to help you develop a strong application for either the innovation grants or the excellence prize. So we're going to share a little bit about Pratt Whitney and NAAE. Then we'll dive into the E-STEM Awards. We'll go over the application criteria for both the grants and the prize. And all of those are laid out in the RFP, but we'll go through them and answer any questions that you have. We'll also share some overall guidance that we have across both of the opportunities, just guidance for writing a strong application. We'll talk a little bit about the online application on Submittable, but we'll also share a recorded demo for you if you have any issues with the platform. And then we'll also share with some additional, we'll end with some additional resources. And we'll have time for questions throughout. We have a couple places where we will pause for questions, but please share questions in the chat throughout, and my colleague Madeline will help me to get through as many as we can today. Any that we don't get to today, we'll do our best to respond to you over email. Okay, so first off, a couple housekeeping items. We do encourage you, as I said, to type questions in the chat throughout this webinar. Please stay muted when you are not speaking. It helps us to just hear everyone better. Please also feel free to ask for clarity at any time. If I say anything too quickly or if anything isn't clear, please ask for clarity and we're happy to repeat ourselves or explain further. We also have enabled captions for this webinar, so you can click the CC icon to see captions in English, if that helps you to understand what we're sharing during the webinar. And we will also be recording, we are recording and we will be sharing this webinar within the next couple of days, along with any links and resources that we mentioned. So you don't need to worry about writing down website links. We will share all of that in an email. So as I said, we're going to give you a quick introduction to both Pratt & Whitney and NAAE. And to kick us off, I'm going to turn it over to Margot.
Thank you, Nina, and welcome everyone. I think echoing all the words and sentiments you've heard already this morning, we are so excited to be able to have you all be able to apply for our second round of E-STEM Awards held in partnership in close collaboration with NAAE. My name is Margot, as was already mentioned, and that is my dog, Rio, in the mountains in New Hampshire. I'd like to share that picture just because it, for me, emphasizes why I do the work that I do and the importance of the environment for all of us, no matter where your local environment is, and also our shared environment globally. So we're really looking forward to seeing your submissions and how you are specifically working to inspire, or want to work as well, to inspire young people to engage with STEM education to solve environmental challenges. STEM education, again, is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So really key skills for students and key skills for the students to harness to solve some of the issues that we face globally when it comes to climate. Pratt & Whitney is the company that I work for, is a global manufacturer of airplane engines. And we are also working at the cutting edge of technology to make engines cleaner and greener, as well as smarter. Our kind of signature product is the gear turbofan, or GTF engine, which has 50% lower emissions than other engines on the market. And we're consistently working towards using sustainable aviation fuels, as well as different technologies to be able to lower the environmental footprint, hydrogen propulsion too, many different ways that we're approaching to make sure that we can still keep the world connected, and as well as make sure that the environment isn't taking an impact as a part of that, and working with our partners across the aviation industry to be able to do so. So we're excited. We think that there's a very big importance, and we underline E-STEM education around the world. Climate change is truly a global issue. And so even if we are a global company on many sites around the world, but even if you are not near one of our sites, we really value the work that you're doing in your communities. So that's it from my end. I do have to jump in a few minutes, but I'll stay on for a little bit longer just to engage a little bit more in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Margot. And I want to echo what Anne is saying in the chat. Thank you so much for being such a great collaborator and partner on this project. We're really excited to be in the second year, the second opportunity for these awards. So a little bit now about NAAE. So we are the North American Association for Environmental Education, and we call ourselves the backbone organization for environmental education. We are also a professional association for environmental educators and professionals in this field. And we are working with a diverse group of educators and organizations around the world, not just in the US, Canada, and Mexico, but in other countries as well. And our goal with all of this is to advance environmental education globally. And our mission at NAAE is overall to use the power of education to advance environmental literacy and civic engagement to create a more equitable and sustainable future for everyone. And we really believe in that power of environmental education to help equip people with the skills, knowledge, and the tools that they need to be active citizens and good stewards of our environment. And so through this E-STEM Awards program, we, along with Pratt & Whitney, are so excited to support other organizations all around the world who are using that power of education to equip the newest generation of environmental stewards with critical STEM skills to help solve these really complex environmental issues that we are facing today. So now we're going to share a quick overview of the two opportunities that we have available, the innovation grants and the excellence prize. First off, I want to share quickly what we mean by E-STEM. So the E-STEM Awards support programs that engage students in meaningful STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math learning experiences through environmental problem solving. So E-STEM really focuses on promoting interdisciplinary learning across these fields, and it also empowers students to help find solutions for complex, real-world environmental issues. So I want to quickly highlight the difference between the two opportunities. So with the innovation grants, you are applying for a grant of up to $15,000 US to implement a new E-STEM program or to enhance an ongoing program. And the time frame for that project that this grant would fund is from November of this year through October of 2024, so a 12-month time frame. With the Excellence Prize, you're applying for a prize of up to $50,000 US. And that prize is aimed at recognizing programs that have already demonstrated excellence in E-STEM. So that means that you have a program that has already been implemented and you've seen some positive outcomes from that program that you can share in your application for the prize. And for the prize, it's completely up to you how and when you want to spend that prize for your organization or for the program. But we will ask you in the application how you plan to use that prize to improve on or expand your existing program. You can apply to both the grants and the prize opportunity, but each organization can only submit one application for each. So you cannot submit more than one application, or you can't submit more than one program for the grants, for example, but you can submit an application for each opportunity. Okay, so a little bit about eligibility. All of this is listed out in the RFP, but we wanted to go over this quickly here as well. So you do need to be a registered nonprofit organization or a school, institution, or university that is tax exempt. If you have any questions about this, you're welcome to email us. But you do need to have nonprofit status in whichever country you are based. It does not need to be US 501c3. You can be a registered nonprofit or a tax-exempt educational institution in whichever country where you are based. And you can be from anywhere in the world. You also need to have a bank account that can receive electronic funds in US dollars. This is essential for receiving the grant money or the prize money. You also, through your application, have to demonstrate that you have fiscal and administrative stability to oversee the program or the grant project throughout the duration of the grant period. And we ask questions related to this in the application. Your program, whether it's for the grant or the prize, must be engaging students ages 11 to 22. If you applied last year, you might notice that age range expanded a little bit. So your program must engage students ages 11 to 22. You can engage students anywhere within that age range. So if it's just ages 11 to 15, that's fine. If it's 16 to 20, that's fine. It just has to be within that age range. And you also have to be able to administer the program that you are applying for between November 2023 and October 2024. We are also only accepting submissions in English through our online application and submittable. Okay, so next, what must E-STEM programs include aside from the eligibility pieces? And I encourage you to read through our request for proposals in a lot of detail, because we include much more information about all of these requirements and the criteria in there. So first off, your programs, whether for the grants or the prize, they must engage students in at least one of the 4 STEM topics. And in your submission, we ask that you specify which of these topics it's a part of your program. Next, there must be an action component to your project. We want to see that students are being empowered to take action using what they are learning, so that you're going beyond sharing information and knowledge to empowering students to take action. Your programs must also include real-world student-directed environmental problem solving, and it must engage students to take action in at least one of our 3 priority areas. And this year, those are climate change solutions, sustainable energy, and sustainable transportation. You must also, in your submission, explain how your program promotes creative solutions and teamwork among students through your educational activities. You must also be aiming to improve STEM learning and environmental literacy, and show how your program outcomes align with that goal. And your program should also be emphasizing the skills that are needed to pursue environmental careers. I encourage you to take a look at the RFP and the links that we have in the RFP with some frameworks that you can use as an example. You're not required to use those frameworks, but we really appreciate the Brookings Institution's Green New Learning Agenda framework, and it shares a long list of skills that are essential for green careers. So I encourage you to take a look there. So a few other elements that we're looking for, but that are not required. And again, this is across both the grants and the prize. The first is we'll give preference to programs that are working with underrepresented audiences in STEM. And that can be as defined in your country or region. You don't need to define it based on the United States or anywhere else if you're not based there. And we will ask you to describe what these underrepresented audiences are in your application. We also really encourage applicants to be working in partnership with other organizations, schools, government agencies, or other groups. And this is really to help boost the program's impact. And again, we have some questions related to partnerships and the opportunity to upload letters of support from any partners that you are working with or that you plan to work with. So a really quick look at the timeline for the E-STEM Awards this year. The submission deadline for both opportunities is June 28th, and that is by midnight US Eastern Time. Please use the time conversion on our webpage to make sure that you have the correct local time. And all of the applications must be submitted through our online application called Submittable, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. We plan to notify and publicly announce all the awardees by September of this year. So you will be notified whether you are successful or not before September. And then the grant period will begin in November of this year and will run for 1 year. And the RFP includes an even more detailed timeline as well as responsibilities of grantees and prize winners. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And again, the RFP includes a lot of information that we're covering today, but also even more. We also have it available in a few additional languages on our website. But again, submissions do need to be in English. So please take a really close look at either the prize or the grants RFP, depending what you're applying for. Okay, so do we have any questions so far? We will dive into the criteria for each opportunity after this, but any questions about the overall opportunities or anything we've talked about so far? I will take the second to take a sip of water. Okay, if we have no questions, we're going to move on. But again, please feel free to type questions in the chat as they come up.
Nina, we do have a hand
Oh.
raised, actually.
Oh, okay. Shira, yes, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm just wondering, you mentioned that we could have 2 different applications, one for each of the initiatives, and I'm wondering if those should be for different programs or if they should be for the same program.
That's a great question. They can be for the same program, but you'll notice you'll have to kind of frame them slightly differently. If you have a program where you have already some outcomes, you've already been implementing it for a while, that's suitable for the prize. If for the same program you have a specific sort of expansion or a new element that you want to do, that piece would be a good fit for the grant application. So they can all be part of the same program, but you would probably be focusing on different elements of one program for each opportunity.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, and you said to only apply once to each.
Mhm.
Okay,
That's correct. Yep.
great, thank you.
Great. Yes, so we've got another question. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Thank you, but I've got a question here again about this application for the prize. We have already completed the program a few years ago. Are we eligible for application? I mean, by eligible, I mean we have already done it, for example, a few years ago about this STEAM project. Can we apply with our project, or it should be something that's still running?
That's a good question. I think for in the prize, we ask for how you will use the prize funds if you are awarded the prize. So it is probably okay if there's been a little bit of a gap, but you do need to show that you plan to use the prize to improve on that program that was running. So as long as the organization is still running, there's still a team that can be working on that program. We want to see how the prize funds will be used to expand on that program that you're applying, that you're using in your submission.
And Nina, can I just jump in and say that
Yeah.
it's really important to highlight the E-STEM work that you're doing? And do you pronounce your name Sebnem? Yes, hi.
Yes, right.
Where are you from? Where are you
I'm
calling
from
me?
Turkey.
Oh, nice to meet you virtually. But to just make sure that you are emphasizing the E-STEM work that you are doing and the work you will do in the future to advance that E-STEM work, that's really critical.
Does that help, Sebnem? And you can email us and we can, if you have really specific questions, we're happy to help.
Okay, just one more question, please.
Mhm.
So in this case, can we, if we apply for the prize, do we need to expand our same project or no, that we can use our previous project as an experience so that we can use the grant amount for the new one, the similar one actually?
That is a very good question. I think ideally it's for the same one, but if you have a good case for this new program and how it's related to E-STEM, that might be okay. I would really encourage you to also submit that new program for the grants, because that might be a better fit for the grants, even though it's a smaller amount than the prize. If it's a different program, it might be a better fit for the grant opportunity.
Thank you very much.
And feel free to email us and we can help. Yeah.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, great. And Louis, we do support salaries through, you can include salaries in your budget, whether for the grants or for the prize. We don't really have many restrictions on what can be covered in that. Yep. Okay, great. I'm gonna keep moving on. Oh, how many awardees? Grace, that's a great question. We don't have a set number of awardees that we will have. Last year we had 12 across both the prizes and the grants, but that could vary year to year. All right. Please do keep the good questions coming. We're going to move on to the application criteria for the innovation grants. So again, these innovation grants, these are for up to $15,000 to support a new program or an enhanced piece of an existing program. And the grant period will end in October of 2024. And I want to point out that this year we have a new special categories within the innovation grants opportunity. And that is a special $10,000 US grant that's available specifically for organizations who are working or who are proposing projects related to sustainable aviation or other transportation issues. You do not need to submit a separate application for that. We will consider all applications that are submitted for the innovation grants that have a relevant piece about sustainable aviation or other or sustainable transportation. We will consider all of those for this special category. Okay, so here are the scoring criteria for innovation grants. We're going to go over just a few of them that we think tend to have the most questions. But again, please look at the RFP for a lot more detail about all of these. So first, the project description. So this is the first and longest section of the application, and this is really the meat of your application. This is where we want you to describe your proposed objectives and your activities. So in this section, it's really important that you include at least one STEM discipline. As we mentioned in eligibility, we want to see that you're meeting all of the elements that we're looking for in these programs. You also need to specify how your project is aligned with one or more of those priority areas that we mentioned earlier. You should describe how you are engaging students in real-world student-directed environmental problem solving, and also how your project is promoting creative solutions, teamwork, STEM and environmental literacy, and promoting green skills. So your project description should, along with describing your activities in as much detail as you can, make sure that you are including all of this in your description as well. Along with your project description, you have the option to upload a letter of, it's actually a letter of support, I believe, from a partner, donor, or any other individual organization who can attest to your organization's past work or your expertise related to the project that you are submitting. So this can be from anyone who can speak to your experience and your ability to implement the project that you are proposing. You can include up to 3 letters And if you have partners, we really recommend that you include letters from those partners. If you don't have key partners, that is fine. You can include it from other individuals or organizations. In the letters, please make sure that they describe their relationship with you or your work, or their role, especially if it's a partner. Make sure that they describe their role in the project that you are proposing. And there are more instructions in the online application about how to approach and upload these letters. One more thing, again, these are optional. They are optional, but highly recommended. So they are not required. Okay, so in the outcomes and evaluation section, we are looking for you to identify at least one outcome or for each objective that you've included in your project description. So in your project description, we're looking for you to share not only about your activities, but what you're hoping to achieve. What are your objectives? And in the outcomes and evaluation section, we are wanting you to define some clear outcomes that you're hoping to achieve based on those activities that you've described, as well as how you plan to measure those goals. And these outcomes that you describe should be feasible and measurable within the 1-year grant period, because we will ask you to evaluate and assess those before the end of your grant period if you are awarded a grant. And please, please make sure that the outcomes and the evaluation methods align with your activities and your audience. This is one key piece of feedback that we get from our reviewers who are reviewing and scoring these applications. It's very important that these outcomes are aligned with the activities that you've described earlier. So we also ask you to describe how you will evaluate success. So again, because you will be evaluating these before the end of the grant period. So what's most important here is that it is clearly feasible. Your evaluation plan is feasible within the grant timeframe, given your staff capacity, given your budget, and also very importantly that you've considered your audience's age and cultural identity in deciding how you will measure those outcomes. And keep in mind, you can evaluate these outcomes qualitatively or quantitatively. There are a lot of different ways you can do it, but we're looking for plans and methods that align well with your activities and with your audience. In the RFP, we include a couple examples of outcomes, just to give you a couple examples that are feasible, they're measurable, and they are related to STEM learning or environmental literacy. And that is another important part of the outcomes and evaluation, please. Please make sure that your outcomes are related to E-STEM learning and environmental literacy, and that they align with the activities that you've proposed. The next section that we wanted to cover with you is the timeline and budget. And this is just for the innovation grants. This is the prize application does not include a timeline and budget. So for the timeline and budget in the online application, you will first need to download our timeline and budget template, where it says download the template here. You will use this one document for both your timeline and budget. You will fill it out and then upload it. Please keep in mind the template file has 3 tabs. It has an instructions tab, then timeline, then budget. So make sure that you go through the whole document and not just look at the first tab. In the timeline tab, we include, we have a timeline template and we have a 1-line example of how you can fill the template. So we ask you to focus on the key activities, and then you mark off the months of when it will take place throughout the grant period. And you don't need to be, you don't have to include every single little step that you will take, But please do include enough detail for our reviewers to see how this aligns with the activities that you've described in your project description. So as I said, for the timeline, we ask you to focus on those major events, but do need to include enough detail and make sure that they align with the project description and that everything ideally will be achievable before October 2024. And you can add additional rows as needed if you have additional activities or steps that you want to include. So next up, we have the budget. The budget template here. And again, we've included an example there for you. So you can use that to fill the rest of the template. Please remember that your budget request should be up to $15,000 US. That is the maximum grant size that we are awarding. You do not need to be super detailed with the budget, but we do need enough detail and explanation in the description column to understand why each expense is necessary for the project. If you do have matching funds or in-kind support, so if you have other sources of funding from other donors, or if you have volunteers, or maybe you have a company that is donating an event space for free, we ask you to include that, any of those kinds of donations or additional funds in the matching funds column. It is not required that you have matching funds, but if you do, we ask you to outline them in that column. And in the template, we have a lot more detailed information about what is included under matching funds, how to calculate like volunteer time, the value of volunteer time. So there's more instructions in the template. Again, make sure that your grant aligns with the project description. That is what our reviewers are looking for when they're scoring your submissions. And all amounts do need to be in US dollars. And again, you can add rows as needed. Okay, do we have any questions related to the grants? And we will talk about the prize after this. But any questions related to the grants?
Nina, there's one question in the grant, and Vanessa, tell me if I'm misinterpreting this, but I believe she's asking if all projects or all part of a grant program has to be completed before the end of the grant period.
Yes. So, and actually, Vanessa, maybe, are you asking if it's okay that all of the activities are done well before the deadline? If that's the question, then yes. If your project is just 6 months and then it will be done, that's fine. We just need to see that all of the activities and the budget will be complete by October 2024. If you might have a few elements that are beyond that, we consider that in some cases, but usually we prioritize submissions where all of the activities are done by October 24. And do you have an example of an outcome from prior grants? I think the best examples that we have are in the RFP. It's very hard to give a lot of examples because these will look very different for every program. But the examples that we include in the RFP align with all of the elements that we're looking for. They are feasible, they are measurable, and they are related to E-STEM learning. So those are the 3 most important pieces. Okay, I'm gonna keep moving on. And we'll have some more time for questions at the end, but keep the questions coming. Just want to make sure that we get through the prize information and then we can have some more time for questions at the end. So Madeline, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Nina. So hi again, everyone. I'm Madeline. I'm going to talk through the prize a little bit and then some additional tips and resources, and then we'll move into Q&A after that. So again, the prize is up to $50,000 US, and it recognizes a program that has already been implemented and has had positive outcomes. So a few of the criteria, we'll discuss the 4 criteria in green here, but this list is all of the criteria for the prize, and they align directly with the application questions. And then these are the points allocated to each criteria for the prize. So we'll start with the project description. Just like the grants, it's very similar criteria here. So you must align with a STEM skill. Your project must be under one of the 3 priority areas. It should involve student-directed learning, etc. The difference here is that for the prize, you're describing activities that you have already implemented or a project that you've already done. And the prize RFP lays out all of the required elements. So again, definitely refer back to that before you apply. One thing to note is that your project can be something ongoing. So for example, if you're still working through a project, but you already have enough completed activities to submit this as a prize instead of a grant, you can do that. We just want to make sure that you have enough activities and outcomes that you can demonstrate excellence and success in E-STEM. And then we also give you the option to add in supporting materials in your project description. So these might be links like photos, videos, or other materials that kind of back up the activities that you're describing. Just one thing to note is we limit it to 3 links only, and to make sure that these are accessible to our reviewers. So they shouldn't have like a sign-in requirement or a paywall that would block our reviewers from being able to see them. And then a final element for the project description is just like the grants, there's an option to upload a letter of support. Again, these are optional but recommended. So this would be from a partner, donor, individual, or other organization who can attest to your organization's past work or your expertise in E-STEM, a major partner that you might have worked with or that you plan to work with as you expand or replicate your program with the prize funding. You can include up to 3 letters from organizations and make sure they describe the role that they played in the project that you're submitting. And one thing to make sure is go read through the RFP and the application about this section specifically to see our other requirements for the letters of support, because it's important to kind of understand, everything that they need to report back in their letters before you request letters from your partners. And again, they're super optional, but highly recommended. Okay, we'll move on to the outcomes and evaluation section. Again, similar to the grants application that Nina talked about earlier, but the difference for the prize is that we're asking you to describe the outcomes that you did measure in your project already, and how those outcomes demonstrated success in your project. So they should be focused on STEM learning and environmental literacy with the students that you worked with. It should align with your activities and your audience that you described. And then we also ask you to describe how you evaluated those outcomes. Again, it can be qualitative or quantitative. We have a few examples here, but there's really a wide range of methods that you could have used. And we just want you to describe how you adapted maybe to your own project's context, the types of evaluation methods that you used. It doesn't have to be anything super elaborate or super scientific, but it should be tailored to the outcomes that you were looking to achieve and that you did achieve, and to your audience. Use of funds is the next criteria we'll talk through. Because this is a prize and not a grant for proposed work, you don't need to submit a budget or a timeline like the grants do. But we do want to know in a written response how you would plan to use the funds to advance your work. So this might include ways that you could replicate or expand your program. It could also be other innovative or interesting ways that you might advance your work with the prize funding, as long as you just explain to us you know, what you would use the prize funding for and how it relates to the Excellence Prize. And then the final criteria we'll talk through is the organizational capacity. So for this criteria, we ask that you describe your organization's experience in managing funding up to the total prize amount and provide an overview of your organization's operating budget. It's totally fine if your organization has not yet managed funding, like at this scale of the 50,000, but your closest relevant experience is super helpful to reviewers. And then one thing to note is that operating budgets can be in a different language and they can be in a different currency. That's not USD, but just please specify somewhere in this response what currency your budget is in. Okay, so that's it for the prizes. We'll go through a few overall advice for both opportunities. So this is for both the grants and the prize. So the first thing is to clearly align all parts of your application. So we've said this over and over, but make sure that whichever objectives or activities that you're describing in your project description match throughout the rest of your application. So things in your budget, for example, should reflect the same activities that you're describing in your project description. The next thing is to make sure that you include all required E-STEM elements. Again, refer back to those RFPs for the full list, but you should include one STEM discipline in your project, and also your project should involve one of the 3 key topic areas that we outlined in the RFP. And then, of course, each question has a word count, and you can use those as a guide. We encourage you to include as much detail as possible. It's super helpful for the reviewers to know more, and so the more detail you can include, the better. And then finally, we keep repeating over and over, but please read the RFPs before you apply. This is like your guide map for the application, and it's so helpful. It has all of the evaluation criteria for each question, so you can know exactly what we're looking for and what we're evaluating you on. Okay, so the online application, so you submit it through Submittable, and we will send you all a brief demonstration of how to work Submittable. It's more or less intuitive, and you do have options to save a draft of your application before you submit and come back to it and work on it. So it'll be easy enough to figure out, but let us know if you have any questions, and submit your applications by June 28th at 11:59 p.m. US Eastern Time. And then just a few additional resources that we'll also send you in an email. So NAAE has an online space called EE Pro, and you can see in this gray box here, we call it a hub for environmental education professional development. So basically it has resources, opportunities, groups. It's an online space for educators and EE to meet and talk through these things. And one of the groups is called E-STEM Education. It's free to sign up for EE Pro. It's free to sign up for these groups. So we recommend that you check out this E-STEM group if you want to connect with some others in the same space. And then a few other additional resources that we'll send you. So of course, we'll send you the RFPs for each opportunity. We'll send you links to the new Green Learning Agenda that Nina mentioned earlier in this webinar. And we'll also send you and encourage you to look through past recipients, so last year's awardees. I think Anne might have also put a link in the chat, and the FAQ for the program. Also look through that. And I think that's it. I think we can move on to any questions. We have a few minutes left.
And I just want to reiterate that our FAQ page, it's linked on our webpage, and we can include that in the email with the recording and the resources. That's frequently asked questions, and we have a lot of the questions that we received at the webinar last year are on there. So I encourage you to take a look through that. If you do have additional questions, take a look through that and see if your question has been answered. If it's not there, please do contact us at this email, and we are happy to help. Yeah, we'll open it up to questions. But if you are logging off now, thank you so much for joining. We're really excited to read all of your submissions. And we will stick around for a couple minutes for questions. And you're welcome to raise your hand if it's easier to say it out loud than in the chat. Either way works. So we can share in the chat the link for the application page if someone on our team has that handy.
Yeah, so I'll post the link to the program homepage, and then so
Yep.
on there, I think it was Lewis asking, there's buttons for the prize application and then one for the grant. So make sure you're selecting the appropriate one that you're applying for.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. There are separate online applications for each opportunity, so make sure you are in the correct one. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, again, feel free to contact us at this email. We will send the recording out to everyone who is registered, along with all of the important links that we've mentioned here. And yes, I think we're good to end this. So thank you so much again. We're so excited for your interest in this program, but also we're really thrilled to see your submissions as they come in. Best of luck. We hope this was helpful. But contact us if you have any other questions. Bye, everyone.